Well, hey everyone, my name is Paul. I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Epic. Hey, welcome to Epic Everywhere again. So if you're watching this at some point in the future and you don't know why this is going on, hey, basically Philly turned into Antarctica this week. So we had to change some things up, but this is gonna be really good. Happy New Year. It's 2018 now. This is gonna be awesome. And 2018, honestly, it's a big year for me especially, so there's some big things happening. So I don't talk about this too much in this arena, but hey, I'm getting married this year. So it's a big deal. 2018 is gonna be a big year for me. My fiance Carly, she's awesome, she's amazing, and we're so excited for what's going down this year. We're gonna be taking a road trip this summer. So instead of just basically me going on road trips by myself and singing at the top of my lungs, now I get to sing at the top of my lungs with someone next to me. So that's awesome. So we have a really good series here today to get started, and I'm super excited about this. I'm gonna jump right into it, all right? So I wanna start off with this question. I wanna ask you, what do you want? What do you want? So think about it for a minute. Maybe you can think about this in a couple different ways. Maybe, what do I want for my life? What do I want for 2018? If you have to hit pause right now and think about it for a couple minutes, if you want to talk to some people you're with right now and just explore that question, what do you want? What do you want? And the thing is, that question's a little bit trickier. It's not as easy as you might think it is. And I think this is why. Because there's what you want, and then there's what you really want. There's what you want, and there's what you really want. And the tricky thing is, they're not always the same. They're not always the same thing. And so we've talked about this a little bit before at Epic, but we're gonna dive into this now with this series. And the series is called How to Get What You Really Want. And it's a 3-part series. So part 1 today, we're gonna just explore this question. What do you want versus what do you really want? And what's the difference there? And in part 2, we're gonna talk about, okay, even if you know what you really want, why is it so hard to get it? Why is it so hard to get what you really want? And in part 3, we're gonna talk about how to actually start getting what you really want. And this series, I'm so excited for this. This is for everybody. So I don't care what you believe or where you come from or anything like that. This is for everybody because we all want what we really want. And so make sure that you tune in for the entire thing. We want you to be engaged for this entire thing. Don't sit back and just watch or just listen to it or whatever. We want you to talk about it. We want you to think about it and wrestle with it. And we think that 2018 is gonna be an awesome year where maybe you can get what you really want. And so I wanna come back to this question then. What do you want? Right? And it's tricky. And so I think as you think about what you really want, there are some things that are true, even if you didn't think it directly or maybe you didn't even say it out loud. And I'll go through some of these things that I think are true, all right? So the first thing is when we talk about what we want, I know this, that we all want to do what we want to do. Like, I want to do what I want to do. And you see this with kids especially. So kids are always asking, like, do I have to do this, right? They want to do what they want to do. And I actually think kids are a great analogy or just a great way to relate for us because the truth is we're honestly all just big kids, right? We might, hopefully, we've matured a little bit. We have better impulse control. I think that we're actually just good at hiding things better than kids are, but at the end of the day, we have the same desires, the same base desires, and so we're a lot like kids. But you see this with kids, right? They want their own way. They want to do what they want to do, and they ask these things like, do I have to do this? And so I've been teaching for 9 years now. So I've been teaching 7th and 8th grade, and I've learned so much from these kids over 9 years, and I've seen this, and if you're a parent, then you've probably seen this too. I've seen this as a teacher, and this is something that I have been telling my students for a few years now. So this thing I'm about to say, this is not for everybody, or this advice is not for everybody. I don't recommend this. So you have to have kind of the right group. Your kid's gotta be mature enough to start to wrestle with some of this stuff. But when my kids say to me, do I have to do this or do we have to do this? Here's what I tell them. I say, no, you don't have to. Right? You actually don't have to do anything. And I can't make you do anything. I mean, really think about that. I can't make you, at this point, I can't make you do anything. I can't make, I'm not gonna grab your hand and make you write this out, right? I'm not gonna pry your eyes open and make you stay awake, right? So if you wanna do something, I mean, you can do it. That's up to you. I can't make you do anything. And so then we start to tease this out a little bit, so, just imagine, like, okay, let's say that you can just do whatever you want then. So you don't have to brush your teeth anymore. You don't have to listen to anything your parents say. If you want to be here in class, you just want to walk out every single day, you could do that. But then what? And the funny thing is, kids are able to start to think about this. Like, they're able to engage that and to start to understand this. And the thing is, the few times in class where someone does do whatever they want, if a kid walks out, or if a kid just says something crazy, the other kids, they don't look at that kid as a hero. The kids, they see that and they can understand, like, oh, that's not a good look. Like, I see where this is going. And so you can help your kids to understand, hey, if you do whatever you want to do, down the road, you're actually going to have less options. So right now as a teenager, if you do whatever you want to do, you're going to have less options down the road. So the same thing is true for us as adults. We can do whatever we want to do, but oftentimes it leaves us with less options. And so that's why this question of what we want is actually pretty tricky. Here's something else that I know is true about what we want is this, and this is true for all of us. I want my own way. I want my own way. So back in the 1970s, Burger King came out with that slogan, have it your way. And the funny thing is, at that point, they were just scratching the surface, because now in 2017, everything is your way. You can have everything your way. You can have food your way, any products your way, any experience, you can just customize it for yourself. And the problem with this is, having it your way doesn't always lead you to exactly what you want. And I've actually found this to be true. When you get your way, you often get in your own way. Like, when you get your way, you often get in your own way. I mean, really think about this. If you've been in an argument where you've wanted something and you just said, I'm gonna have my way, I'm gonna be right no matter what, I'm just gonna bully my way through this, I'm gonna muscle my way through this, I'm gonna get what I want, I'm gonna buy that thing that I want. And a lot of times it blows up in our face. And sometimes we get in our own way relationally, and we can build up debt this way. So getting our own way doesn't always get us what we really want either. Again, this is why this is so tricky. And then here's something else that's true about what we want. Maybe you don't even know what you want, but here's what I know. I want it now, right? So even if I haven't figured out what I wanted, I know that I want it now. Whenever I do figure out what I want, I know that I want it now. I mean, our entire culture is all about this right now. I gotta have it now. It's like one-click shopping, 2-day shipping. Everything has to be immediate, right? Everything is designed for this. But you've discovered this, I've discovered this, we see this with kids all the time, that a lot of times what we want now isn't what we want later. Like, what we want now isn't what we want later. If I got what I wanted now when I was 10 years old, all I would have eaten was Fun Dip. And Fun Dip is basically, it's like a stick made of sugar that you dip into sugar, and that's all I would have eaten. I would have dentures right now talking to you if I got what I wanted when I was 10. If you got what you wanted when you were 16, think about this. You would be married to your high school crush. Let that sink in for a minute. It's not looking good. Not looking good. And I know there are a couple of you, you got married to your high school sweetheart. That's lovely. You are the beautiful and freakish exceptions. But for the most part, hey, a lot of times what we want now, we find this out, it's not what we want later. So this is tricky. And then here's the last thing that's really tricky that I want to point out. I could go on forever about this, but this is the last thing that's really tricky about what we want, that so much of our regret begins with the words I want, or I want it, right? So much of our regret begins with I want. I'm not a person who's really big on regret. So I think if you make a mistake, you kind of dwell with it long enough where you can figure out what went wrong, learn from your mistake, and get better. But the bottom line is there are things that we look back on and we go, that wasn't a good thing. Like that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. And so much of it started with I wanted this. I wanted to be with that person. I wanted to do this thing. I wanted to have this thing. And now we're realizing I wish that I could go back in time now and not get what I wanted. There's so many things that started with I want, and now I'm thinking I wish I hadn't got what I wanted. And even if you're a person who says, I don't dwell on the past. The past is the past. Even if I could go back, I wouldn't change at this point. I would say this: at the very least, if presented with the same situation now, you would say, I've learned from that. I don't want that anymore. Or if someone came to you asking for advice in that same situation, you would say, hey, don't get that thing that you want. I've been there. Here's where it goes, because it doesn't get you what you really want. And that's what this series is about. It is addressing the trickiness of sometimes what you want doesn't actually get you what you really want. And we want to help you find out how to get what you really want. And so luckily we have some help. And so we're going to look at some scriptures, and this is from the brother of Jesus, James, and he writes a letter to Christians. And in chapter 4, he says this. He actually asks a question. He says, what causes quarrels and fights among you? Or what causes fights and quarrels among you? In James chapter 4, verse 1. And the funny thing is, his answer is basically, it's what you want, the things that you want. And so he goes on and says, don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Don't they come from the desires that battle? So don't they come from the wants that are warring inside of you? Think about this, the arguments that we have, the conflict that we have, so much of it is coming because we have things that we want and we're not getting those things that we want. And anytime that you have been gridlocked in an argument where you say this and then she says this and then you say this back and she says this and you're just kind of butting heads, the situation is this: you're not getting what you want and she is not getting what she wants. And so there's conflict that happens here. So whether this want might be a really silly thing, or it might be a really serious, legitimate thing, like, yeah, I want respect, I want love, I want whatever these things are. When we don't get what we want, we get frustrated, we get irritated, we get passive aggressive. In some way, shape, or form, it spills out of us. So when you're not getting what you want, it spills out of you, and that's what James is pointing out here. And then he goes on and he says this: you desire but do not have, or you want but you're not getting what you want. And then he says, so you kill. And you may be thinking, kill? This escalated quickly. And you're thinking, okay, have I argued with people? Have I gotten a little bit irritated? Yeah, but I haven't killed anybody. But I think if you actually really think about it, if you've been driving on 76 and you want to get rid of this traffic, maybe you've thought about killing somebody. All right? But the whole point is, he's actually exaggerating. This is hyperbole. When he says you kill, it's hyperbole. While it could lead to murder, that's possible. That's not the point. I want you to think about this in terms of your relationships in your life and just kind of your world. How many things have you killed because you weren't getting what you wanted, or because you wanted something so bad? I mean, you can want a relationship to death. I mean, you can suffocate a relationship because you want something so bad from somebody. You want a certain type of response from somebody. You want them to do something for you. You want them to spend all of your time with you. You can actually suffer. You can actually push somebody away because of something that you want. Or if you're in a relationship, or if you're married, and you have all these different wants, you can't tell which one is the one that you really want, but so you follow this, and maybe right now your want is this other person or this other thing, and then so you go after that one, and then you hurt the person that you actually love, and so you actually kill a part of your relationship. Some of us have lost relationships because we chased something that we wanted. Some of us have lost opportunities because we've chased something that we've wanted. So that's what James is getting at here. And he goes on and he says, you covet or you pursue, or you chase, but you cannot get what you want. So you quarrel and you fight. So you want these things, you can't have them. You want these things that you can't have, and it causes us to quarrel and to fight. There's conflict. We're unsatisfied. We're irritated. It's spilling out of us. This is going to keep on happening until we can finally get a little bit closer to what we really want. To what we really want. And the bottom line is, we probably shouldn't get what we want. You know, like we probably shouldn't get everything that we want. I've seen this 100 times. Like, thank God sometimes for unanswered prayers, because I think about some of the stuff that I've prayed for, and now looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I asked for that. I'm so glad I did not get that thing that at that time I wanted. And the problem here really is, we don't know what we really want. We keep chasing these things that we want because we don't know what we really want. And this is the truth, and I'll kind of just word it this way. We don't know what we really want because we're so distracted by what we want. Does that make sense? Like, we don't know what we really want, like what we really, truly, deeply want, because we're so distracted by everything else that we want, because there's so much, everything, you have to understand, everything in our society right now is designed to just throw in your face the things of now, like right now, like what's your impulse, what's your desire right now? How can I get this thing right now? Oh, there's this, how can I have this now? And it doesn't take into account this long view. So we're so distracted. We're chasing this thing and we're chasing that thing. We're chasing this thing. We're going after that one, that we don't even have time or the capacity to think about what we really want. But in the shadow of this want and these wants that are in front of my face lurks the thing that we really want. And we're gonna get into that. And so James, he has a really interesting thought about this. So James chapter 4, verse 2, he says, you do not have because you do not ask God. You do not have because you do not ask God. Now there's a few different responses to this, right? Because you may be thinking, okay, first of all, I don't ask God because I don't think that God has what I really want. So that might be you. You might also be in this camp. I don't ask God because I know what the answer is going to be. Like, I don't ask God because I know He's going to say no. It's the same thing that we did when we were kids, right? I'm not going to ask Mom because I know she's going to say no. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway, right? Because I want to have my own way, right? So maybe you're not asking because you don't actually think that God is going to say yes to that thing. Or maybe you're in this camp. Oh, yes, I have asked God. I have asked God for the thing that I want, and He hasn't come through. Like, He hasn't followed through. He hasn't answered that. So I've asked. Now, to follow that up, James continues, and this is just such a good thing here. Verse 3, he says, when you ask, you don't receive, and here's why. Because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. And so when he says wrong motives here, this is a certain translation of a Greek word, and it's a tough word to kind of translate, and wrong motives might not actually be the best way to think about it. And so here's more of a direct translation of this verse, all right? So here it is. It's when you ask, you do not receive because you ask badly. You ask badly. And it's another way to think about this is you're basically asking for the wrong things. This is like a kid who asks, like, hey, can I just eat some sugar right before bedtime? And James is saying, hey, we don't receive because we're asking sort of incorrectly. And this is what ends up happening because we ask for the things that we want, but there are these wants that only satisfy temporarily. So I want this thing, and then sometimes the thing is, even if I get this thing, I find out that I don't want this thing anymore. Or I get this thing and I find out that I'm not satisfied. I get this thing and I find out that I actually want something else, or I need more of it, or it's not enough, or something like that. And so we get caught up in this endless cycle of wants, of these temporary wants. And these are the things that we're asking for, right? That I want this and I want this and I want this and I want this, but we're only being temporarily satisfied. And we're not getting what we really want. And so that's what he means when he says we're asking badly. We're asking for these things that we want, but they don't get us what we really want. And the thing is, God wants something for you. He wants the things that you really want, not just the things that you want right now, temporarily. And so this is the key here. So this is what we're all leading up to in this series, and we're going to continue to explore in this series, is this thought that lurking in the shadows of what we want is what we value. So all of these things that we want, and we're being distracted by this and being distracted by this and being distracted by this, lurking in the shadows of these things that we want is what we value. And so in this series, to help you get what you really want, we want to help you discover what you really value. And this is true. You're never going to get what you really want until you discover what you really value. You're never, ever going to get what you really want until you discover what you really value. And you can spend your entire life chasing like this endless list of wants. And some of us, we have. Like, we're there right now. We've done that. We spend so much time just chasing this endless list of wants. But until you discover what you really value, you're not going to get what you really want. And that's what we want for you, to get what you really want. What actually matters, like what's actually important, that's found in what you value. And just as an example, I see this in relationships so much, right? So people think that they want this or this or this or this, but then down the road, they find out that that's not actually what they wanted. And so what I have now, for example, like what I've learned in my life and with my relationships and even with my fiance now, is that there are some things that I have now that I didn't even know that I wanted 10 years ago. I didn't even know that I wanted these things 10 years ago. And what I wanted 10 years ago is not what I want now. And so a huge turning point for me was discovering, what do I value? And then when you discover what you value, that changes the whole game. Because now, you know what's gonna be less important is a certain height. You know, when you're looking for somebody, a certain height, that's not gonna be as important, or a certain weight, or a certain hair color, or a certain salary number, right? And you can date somebody who makes all the money in the world, but if they don't share your values, you're not gonna end up with what you really want. You can date the best looking person in the world, but if they don't share your values, you're not gonna get what you really want. And so if we wanna get what we really want, we have to figure out what we really value. And that's what this series is about. And that's why I'm so excited about this, because it has such the potential to change our lives for the better, to actually lead you to what you really want. And this is for everybody. Like I was saying before, it doesn't matter what you believe, young or old, this is for every single person, that to get what you really want. Isn't that what we want? To get what we really want? And the cool thing is if you're a follower of Jesus, we're gonna take this even to another level, because it's not just even about what's really important, right? Or what we really value, but we're gonna start exploring then what's most important. Because I think that's what's gonna lead us to the best life that we can possibly have, is to ask ourselves, what is most important in life? And so as we go through this series, here's what I don't want for you. I don't want you to just kind of walk away and go, oh, this is kind of nice. And here's another thing that's true, is that nobody else can figure this out for you. All right, when you start talking about what you really value, what's really important to you, nobody else can do this work for you. I can't do this work for you. Your parents can't do this work for you. Your spouse can't do this for you. Your job can't do this for you. Your bank account can't do this for you. And certainly our society is not going to do this for you. Our society is geared toward just distracting you with what you want right now. Nobody is going to help you figure out what you really value and what's really important to you. You're going to have to do this. And so to that end, we're going to have some questions that are attached for today's session and really throughout the series that we want to give to you. So we're going to have those online with this message. We're also going to have them on social media. We want you to take those questions, wrestle with them, ask yourself what's going on, explore these questions. We want you to talk about these questions. So get your friends together. Ask your friends these questions. Talk about your answers to these questions with your friends. Ask your family these questions. Talk about this with your kids, with your parents, with your siblings. We want you to get in your life groups and talk about this in your life groups. So this is like the perfect thing, right? Life groups, you're doing life with these people, right? And if you're not in a life group, you can find one. They're online. You can join one. We have life groups all over the city. A lot of times they're just meeting in people's houses, but this is the time where you can get some people together and ask these questions and explore these questions. If you need to just like gather some people in your dorm, do that. But ask these questions because it's gonna be worth it, all right? It's gonna be worth it because we wanna help you figure out what you really want. And then we wanna help you figure out how to get what you really want. And as we do that through this series, I am so pumped because I think 2018 can finally be the year where so many of us start to get what we really want. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.